This video is going to be a reminder about how to use the stock system to name ionic compounds. Remember, when you hear the word stock system, your brain is supposed to say, use Roman numerals. The first example we're going to look at is this one right here, where we have CuCl2. And you're going to be asked to name this one. And you're going to have to decide, should I use a Roman numeral or should I not? So first we need the name for Cu, and that's copper. So we write down copper. Next we look on the periodic table to determine if there's a choice of oxidation numbers. And in our periodic table, it's right here. So yes, there is a choice. And so we'll have to decide, was copper 2 used to write this formula, or was it copper 1 used to write this formula? Well, the way you determine that is you basically crisscross. So you take this 2 and put it back up here. So this was a +2. You take this 1 and put it back up here. So this was a -1. So in order to write this formula, copper had to have been a +2. So we write that with a Roman numeral, copper 2. And then we finish with the nonmetal, chlorine. And remember to change the ending to "ide." Chloride. So this is copper 2 chloride. Now let's go the other direction. What if I said the word copper and it was going to be with a sulfate? Well, I would have to specify which copper, so the problem will have to tell you, let's this time use copper 1 sulfate. So in order to write this formula properly, I would write copper, Cu, and this Roman numeral right here tells me which one to use. I don't even have to look on the periodic table. It says use the 1 plus 1. And then the sulfate is SO4, and you look on your chart of polyatomic ions and you'll see that it's a -2. And so now you perform the crisscross rule, so this 1 is going to end up way out here, and this 2 is going to end up right here. And so our final formula is going to be Cu2SO4. Remember, at this point, SO4 is a 1, but we can put parentheses or we can leave the parentheses off since it's going to be a 1. Yesterday we worked on writing formulas using the stock system with straight-up ions, and then today I'm going to review that and then ask you to finish up that worksheet with some samples that involve polyatomic ions. So yesterday you were given the name barium chloride, and you were asked to write the formula. So we put on Ba and we looked it up and noticed it was a 2+, and there were no choices. I can tell you right now that there are no choices because I do not see a Roman numeral anywhere right here. And if you don't see a Roman numeral anywhere right here, then you know you just look on the chart and use its most common oxidation state. Then I look up chlorine and I see chlorine again is an anion and it ends in IDE, so most likely it's one from the periodic table, and it was a 1-. And so the final answer for that comes out to be BaCl2 after we perform the crisscross rule. And then we had some that you actually had a Roman numeral, and we had something that looked like this: chromium 3 sulfide. And so this Roman numeral indicated what we should do. We should write chromium Cr, and it says to use the 3 plus charge and combine it with sulfur. And I look up sulfur on the periodic table and notice that it's a -2. And so I perform the crisscross rule and I get Cr2S3. That's chromium sulfide. So these are ones with just ions coming together. So now I want to look at some that have polyatomic ions and that they have Roman numerals also, so we'll have to use the stock system. So one of the examples on the worksheet says that we have iron 3 sulfate. So notice right away that this ends in ATE. That's a good hint that you need to get it from the polyatomic ion chart. So we write down iron, Fe, and it's right here. Hey, use the 3 plus. Don't even have to look on the table. It's right there. And sulfate, you're probably going to have to look up. So you get your chart of polyatomic ions, and you notice that it is SO4, and it has a charge of 2 minus. So when we perform the crisscross rule, remember this 2 is going to go right here after that Fe, but this 3 has to go way outside the SO4. And so your final answer is going to be Fe, parentheses, SO4, parentheses with a 3 on the outside. Oop, I forgot the 2, with the 2 right here. All right, so that's how you do it with polyatomic ions. Do not forget that you have to put the parentheses in there. Now we're going to go the other direction. You're going to have a formula, and you're going to have to name it, and you're going to have to see if you need to use a Roman numeral or not. For example, let's look at FeCl2. So I write the word for Fe, and that would be iron. And then I look on the periodic table, and I notice that iron has 2 choices. It could be a 2 or it could be a 3. So in order to determine that on here, I told you that you need to uncrisscross. So you would have to remember that in order for this formula to be written, it had to have had a +2 here. And this chlorine had to have had a -1. So that tells me that I have to use a Roman numeral 2 for the iron. So it'll be iron, Roman numeral 2, and then finish with chloride. Now let's look at one that will have a polyatomic ion attached with it. All right, let's try copper, parentheses, Cu, parentheses, NO3, 2. All right, so I look up Cu, it's copper, and I need to know if it was copper 1 or copper 2. Well, remember, I look over here. Okay, so therefore it is copper 2. And then I finish with NO3. So I look at my list of polyatomic ions, and I look up NO3, and I see that that is nitrate. And so we end up with the name of copper 2 nitrate. Okay, it's time to practice. So this worksheet should look familiar to you. It's the one that we did yesterday in class. And so I'd like you to do the problems that we did not do in class. And these will be ones that may or may not require a Roman numeral, and they may or may not use polyatomic ions. You decide. And it'd be okay if you wrote these on your random practice paper. Again, this is on Edmodo.